It is Jeanette with Untamed and Unapologetic. And today I have a powerhouse woman with me. Her name is Christine. Christine, tell the audience who you are and how we know each other.
Well, first and foremost, my friend, I am so glad we're finally doing this because obviously I had you on my podcast, Girl Out of Order, and you just always hit it out of the park. But let me rewind a little bit. I am Christine Gale. I am a family law attorney. I'm a podcast host, like I just said. I'm an identity coach and author and a speaker. And no, I do not sleep, but I've got big dreams and I want a big life just like Jeanette does. A couple years ago, I guess it was September of 2023, right? That we were in Fiji?
Like 3 years ago? 2 years ago? Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago because we were talking right before we started recording that the memories came up and I found the first ever picture of Jeanette and I in Fiji. And I have to tell you, when I first met you, you were so different than you are now, but you have always had such a spark. And so in Fiji, I don't even think we were in the same area of the room. We were there for Life and Wealth Mastery, Tony Robbins program, also led by our fearless leader, Lauren Lahav. And I think you were all the way to, if you're looking at the stage, weren't you all the way to the right?
I was in the back. I sat in the back, Christine.
Oh, yeah. Nobody puts baby in the back. Let me just tell you that right now. But you
Yes.
did because you were different then. And so was I. I was all the way to the left. I was there with my husband and we were just kind of going through the program, right? And I remember at the end, I felt super drawn to you, but I couldn't put my finger on why. And then fast forward, so that was in September of 23, fast forward to March of 2024. I was speaking at the Own Your Worth conference led by, again, our fearless leader, Lauren Lahav, and you needed a ride to the airport. I remember seeing you in the audience and I was like, Jeanette, why do I know Jeanette? It was
I
like,
know her.
I'm like, I know her, but I couldn't remember her because we
You know
hadn't.
what, Christine? I was
What?
like stardom because you actually like got on stage and told your whole freaking story. And I'm like, that I know her.
To hear that. Yeah,
Yes.
I actually, after our Fiji experience, I was able to take the True Voice Intensive with Lauren Lahav, and I was super blessed to win the Ruby Slippers. So yes, I did get to take the stage
She
at On Your
was
Worth, and it was the first time I'd ever told my very difficult story. It
yeah.
was the story I have always been too afraid to tell. And I remember seeing you in the audience, and I remember giving you a giant hug. And then I had the opportunity to drive with you to the airport. And you told me you were joining the True Legacy Collective, which is our TLC sisters. And we're both in year 2. And so we're
I
just getting
know.
started, just getting warmed up. Girl, I cannot believe that we're almost in the last quarter of this year. What? What happened?
Yes. So I want to tell a story of Fiji. This is how I remember you.
Uh-oh.
So they separated us, right? To climb the telephone pole. And you were so like worried because your husband and you weren't going to do it together. And so, do you remember this?
I do now. I
And
think
she
you
was,
kind of said, knock it off, didn't you?
yeah, you were freaking out. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to do this together. We're going to climb that pole. And you're like, I'm going first. And I was like, I'm going to go right after you.
I needed to get that out of the way. And for context, we climbed a telephone pole and jumped off on purpose. And I was so afraid that
Yeah.
I knew if I sat there and watched other people do it, I was just going to get more and more afraid. And did you go right after me? You did. I think I was so
Yeah.
like shaken at the end. I don't even remember that. But what's interesting, it's so funny now that you said that, I'm starting to kind of put some pieces together in
Yeah.
terms of how you and I are now showing up in our energy
And
and
that,
for our mission and for our families. And it's that you and I were ready to leap. We were just ready to
yeah.
take that jump. And we didn't even know what that was going to look like in the next year. But look where we are now.
I know. We have both grown so much. In fact, when you find that picture, send it to me so I can put it on with this podcast because it's like night and day.
Night and day. We
Yeah.
both we both look, I don't know if this is the right word, but we both look a little uncomfortable in our skin.
That reminds me of like the transitions that we go through in life, right? We all start
Mhm.
in one area of life, something happens, or you get this emotional pull or something that's telling you to go this direction instead of this direction. We end up where it leads us, but then we have to figure ourselves out all over again, right? And I know this is
Mhm.
like your expertise. Like you are like an expert in this in so many different ways, a lot because you've lived.
4 adult daughters. I got them all to adulthood. I'm waiting for my, like, championship medal to come in the mail. Yes, I did that.
Yes, but you have been, I think we all have these moments, right? We go through life, we have a
Mhm.
transition, and I think it's in that transition period that we can either figure things out in a right way and go towards growth, or we get stuck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm glad you brought that up. And when we first started talking about it, I was thinking, "Okay, this is what I wanna talk about in the context of my legal practice," because I
Mhm.
practice family law. So, I am a divorce attorney, and I have the absolute honor and privilege to walk people through one of the hardest seasons of their life, where it's often a complete dismantling of what they thought they wanted, what they thought was true, and then they're facing, like, "How do I rebuild?" So I thought that's the direction I was gonna head, but as you're talking, I wanna unwind a little bit from my own story, and because I think it informs how I got to where I'm at in terms of my practice and my
Yeah.
mission and my podcast. I was a stay-at-home mom for my 4 daughters, and I was that crazy mom at Target with 6, 4, 2, and brand new. I
Yes.
mean, a beautifully chaotic shit show walking anywhere that we went. And I just remember trying so hard to figure out who I wanted to be as a parent because I
Mhm.
didn't have great role models. I didn't have a family backing me up and showing me the way. And so I remember as a young mom spending so much time looking around. And if I had done it in a healthy way, I would have been looking around for role models to be
Yeah.
mentored by, but I didn't have the tools at the time. And so what I spent that time doing, Jeanette, is looking around and comparing myself to people that looked
Mm.
perfect. And so I exhausted myself trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect mom, the perfect Christian. And
Yeah.
I remember probably about 8 years in to
Mhm.
my parenting of my daughters so that I would have had the 2 4 6 8 moment because they were every
Mhm.
2 years. I remember feeling like I was a mirage. Like those cartoons where you'd see like one of the characters and they would be kind of pixelated, you'd see them disappearing. That
Yes.
was me. And I know that that was the turning point for me where I was just sick of myself. And I
Yeah.
had to face a crossroads. Am I going to keep going down this path of disappearing, or am I going to take this as a warning sign and start doing things differently? And
Yeah.
that's what I did.
Yeah, I think so many women, just period, we do this. We lose ourselves in trying to figure
Mhm.
out what is the perfect version of this mother, this wife, this lawyer, counselor, right?
Right.
What is that perfect version? And so we, with social media, I mean, we compare ourselves every day. Like, are we as good as them? If they're there and I'm not, then there's something wrong with me. And then we bring ourselves
Mhm.
down. And I just think
Yep.
this is something, I don't know why God put this in all women, but it's there. But the beauty of it is what? Like, what did you do? How'd you get out of it?
So for me, I was, Tony Robbins talks a lot about the elements of change, and the last element
Mhm.
that he talks about is grace. And
Yeah.
I know that I was the recipient of God's beautiful grace, and I had an opportunity to go back into practicing law part time, which is almost unheard of. And so for me, it was about literally stepping out of my role I was in, and that was my jumping off the pole moment. And that happened in 2010, I think it was. And I remember going to that interview and I had to go out and buy a suit. I mean, all I had was clothes that were covered in spit up and juice and all the things, because I was a professional nose and butt wiper and I was loved being home with my kids. And there was this hunger in me to do something different. And so I got a suit and I go to this interview and I'm literally praying as I'm walking in there, whatever happens, just don't let me say the word potty. Let me be able to speak like an adult. And I remember walking out of that interview. Actually, no, let me back up. I remember being in that interview and I was talking to the server and we're just bantering. And I realized in that moment, I'm really, really good at people. And I walked out of the interview and I was floating because I said, I don't care if I get the job or not. Had this moment of renewed confidence, moment of renewed competence that I could do something different if I choose to. And it was
Yeah.
so empowering. So what I would say to anybody who feels like they're stuck, just take the next right step. It doesn't have to be jumping off a telephone pole or even interviewing for a job. It can be a 2 millimeter shift that reminds you who the hell you are.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk more about that in a moment, but I want to talk about that stuck part. For those 8 years, right? You were
Hmm.
mama. You were stay-at-home
Hmm.
mom. You, like you said, you wipe the butts and clean the noses, right?
Hmm.
What made you feel, other than just comparing, that that's where you had to be? And then what led you to have that aha moment that made you get on top of the pole and then make the jump?
Great question. And I'm not sure my answer is going to be,
Okay.
well, I'm not going to qualify it. It's something I've been working on. The short answer is it was a slow evolution. And when I say evolution, I really mean that word because it's not a bad thing necessarily. But I was literally like that babbling brook that's going over rocks. And after a time, you notice that the water level's lower, and you're like, why is the water level lower? The
Yeah.
water's not actually lower. The rocks are just worn down. But it doesn't happen overnight. For me, it was a slow losing of myself. It wasn't like one moment I felt stuck and I'm like, that's it, I'm done. It
Yeah.
was just a day by day looking in the mirror, searching in my eyes for some semblance of who I knew I could be. I think I became increasingly disconnected, but the part that was so I wouldn't say confusing, but the part that kept me wavering is that I truly loved being home with my kids. And
Yeah.
so, mama guilt, I know you're a single mama, that mama guilt of like, I
Yeah.
love being home with them. What's wrong with me that I want something else or something more? And so that part, that actually was kind of a stuckness because
Mm,
I really sort of continually talked myself out of these desires that were always bubbling up in me and poking at me. And
yeah.
then there's one more aspect that I think well, I know that there are women out there that can relate to this is I was deeply involved in a very conservative Christian denomination. And so
Mm,
I had those voices in my head that there was one way that a woman should be. There's
mm,
one way that a wife should be. There's one way that a mama should be. And I had endured years of spiritual abuse and critique of the way that I am, how I'm wired. You know me, Jeanette. I am wired to be a live wire.
mm.
Like God did not create me to be a meek and gentle spirit. That's not who
You're
he
a
designed me to be.
firecracker.
I'm a firecracker and I'm also just a super passionate woman. And I
Yeah.
believe truly that I've been called to have a big life to impact people's lives. And that was really frowned upon on not only in the church community I was in, but in the friends that these are wonderful, incredible women, but there wasn't room for me. And
Yeah.
so I became increasingly filled with shame and self doubt because I didn't match up with the ideal. So
I'm glad
it,
you
ev-
brought
it evolved over time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that was coming to mind, right? I think we're also born with these belief systems, right? And then we get influenced by our outsiders, like your church, our
Mhm.
parents, friends, social media. But we're like, I was born believing that I was supposed to be a good Catholic girl, get
Mhm.
married through the church, have babies, and then that's it. That's just not what happened to me in my life. And because that didn't happen that way, I created
Mhm.
these other beliefs that said, you're not good enough. Nobody wants you, which kept me
Mhm.
stuck for so many years.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Like, would you say like if there was a belief system in there too, along with the influence?
Absolutely. For all of my childhood, I lived in that tension of believing the messages I got, overt or covert, that I was too much. I was too loud, too bold, too opinionated. I talked too much. I was too much work. But on the other end of that tension, I would never be enough. I would never be enough to be loved. I would never be enough to be chosen. I would never be enough for the people I wanted to be enough for. And so I grew up like believing both of those sets of BS. Those are lies from the pit of hell. That tension, I think, is one of the most potent tools that keeps women stuck because we're told go out there and make a big life, but when we do it, we're like, "Oh, but not too big. Not too big. Don't talk too much. Don't be too strong." And then on
Yeah.
the other hand, we're like told, "You can do whatever you want. Oh, but you're not really going to be enough to get the CEO position. But, if you want to be, middle management, we got you. And so for me, there was a lot of those belief systems that were built in. And then when you couple trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, which was me fitting into this conservative Christian denomination, there's always somebody to go, isn't she precious? We'll pray for her. And I say that, I know you can probably hear a little bit of the intensity in my voice because I
Yeah.
feel very intense about it. Because I have beef with how women are treated in the church and how we are squelched. And so what I did, it's probably similar to what you did, is
Mhm.
I took those messages and I used them as a Brillo pad to shave down my edges to try to be that circle and
Yeah.
that fit into that round hole of expectations. And that came from my belief that I was too much.
Yeah.
And if I didn't fix this, I would always be not enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear like there's a conflict within us, right? And it's that conflict
Mhm.
of what we believe and what others are saying that kind of keep us stuck. But what was that moment for you that that conflict was like, I'm climbing and jumping?
Okay, so I can point to a time when I had an aha moment, and it's kind of kitschy, but it kind of cracks me up. My sister in law, I had been dabbling around the edges of personal development, but I shied away from it because it was frowned upon in the church. Like,
Yeah.
no, it's not that you matter, because if you matter, you're prideful and arrogant and you're not godly. So for the longest time, I pushed it away, but I just kept being interested. And my sister in law introduced me to Rachel Hollis's Girl Wash Your Face. And I was really reluctant because, of course, all the church ladies were, she's not,
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to read it and see. It was one of the first books I had finished in a long, long time because I, like you, have ADHD. And so it's really hard to finish a book. I can listen to books, but reading it, I was reading and
Story.
highlighting. And I saw I know, and I saw myself in those pages, and I went to see her documentary with 2 of my closest girlfriends,
Mm.
and it just lit a fire in me, and I'll tell you the moment that
Yeah.
everything changed is she did in the documentary in one of her conferences, she did this exercise called Stand Up for Your Sister,
Okay.
and I've actually done it in one of my workshops, and what you do is you have this list of paper of all these different things, whether I had an abortion, I was an addict, whatever, all these really hard things that women go through because women, we are badasses, but we've been through some stuff.
Yeah.
And you check the boxes and you fold it up, put it in an envelope, and then you pass it to the person next to you. And then that person, then you're freaking out because you're like, she's going to know. And then you pass it behind and then you pass it. But basically, it's passed all over the
Wow.
place until you don't know who has your sheet and there's no names. And
Yeah.
then Rachel Hollis read from the stage, if the person whose paper you're holding had an abortion, for example, stand up. And then this huge auditorium, all these women stand up. And
Mm.
then the one that really gutted her, she said, if the person whose paper you're holding hates her body, please stand up. And every single person in the auditorium stand up. And I just remember sitting in the movie theater just weeping because I had 4 girls and I'm watching all of this pain of women just pouring out. But what really changed me was I'm watching all these women stand up for them. And I thought, that's it. That's my mission. I got goosebumps all over. That's what
Me
I'm
too.
called to do. I am called to
Yeah.
stand up for my sister. I am called to stand in the gap. And I am called to be the kind of mom that provides a safe place for each of my daughters to uniquely unfold without all of those belief patterns that don't serve them. It's awesome. And then
Yeah.
I did that exercise when I did a workshop for my daughter's college soccer team.
Mhm.
And the male coach afterwards came up bawling.
Oh,
It
wow.
bawling, like, it was transformative because even at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, these girls already have these stories
They
that
do.
are either fueling them or they are keeping them stuck, and
Yeah.
it was eye-opening, and it was jarring because 'cause I'm watching my daughter stand up, and that was hard.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
just reminds me like the first time that I can recall saying something negative about myself was when I was 6 years old.
Mm.
And so I know for a lot of us, that's there
Mhm.
also. But the fact that you were driven to make a difference and to change it and to help other women do this is amazing.
Yeah. And you know what the cool part is, and this is what I want your listeners to hear. It's
Mhm.
never too late to change this. I'm sitting here in my
Mhm.
office And I just have these notes from my daughter. This is from my youngest daughter. You can't see it because I think it's backwards, but it says, keep on being a badass. And what's so important about these letters and these notes that I get from my kids is that they are watching. They're
Mm.
all adults now. And two, I just dropped the last two off at college, and they both wrote me beautiful letters before they left. And it makes
Mm.
me very emotional. But
Yeah.
they've been around the longest of my personal development journey, and they've been able to watch how I have not only let go and shed these old stories, but how I have unfolded and stepped into the new stories that I'm writing as I
Mm.
go through these life transitions, as I go through forced menopause, through a hysterectomy, and all that that does to your self image and your body and your hormones, and then the empty nesting, and then really special joining TLC, becoming, joining this group of women that I didn't yet feel ready for.
Yeah.
I did not feel ready to be in this group. And there are some days I'm still going, I don't know how I got here, but it doesn't happen as much anymore.
Yeah.
But they've been able to see that. So it's never too late to change this.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is that we don't need to be afraid to pick up a phone, to ask the woman next to us for help. I think a lot of us feel like
Mhm.
we shouldn't communicate that, hey, I'm hurting. Can you help me? And I know for me, for years, I never said anything. Like people would never know that I was struggling ever. And it wasn't until I met you and all these other women that I realized that there's power in our words, right? There's power
Mhm.
in our voice, and all we have to do is literally like, you could be at the grocery store and you're with your 4
Mhm.
kids, and if you need help, you could ask a woman next to you, and I guarantee you she would
Mhm.
probably help you. It's like
She'd
a
be she'd be so excited to do it.
it's like an unwritten rule that I think we forget.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So first I want to lead off by saying women are the most magnificent creatures ever made. In all of the animal kingdom, in all of the human kingdom, women, bar none, are the most extraordinary, textured, eared, interesting creatures. And we are always evolving and changing and growing and stretching. And here's the beautiful truth: we can do it so much more elegantly, so much more effortlessly if we don't try to do it alone. If we find a tribe, if we ask for help, if we use our voice and connect with other women. And let's be honest, because I did a podcast recently on
Mhm.
letting go of friendships that no longer serve you. And it's the most response I've ever gotten because
Yeah.
women, as extraordinary as we are, we can be the worst. And I don't know a woman out there who does not have pain in her soul caused by a relationship. Or here's the difference you can make: you
Mm.
can either choose to focus on that, or you can plant your flag and decide to be the light that you want to see in women. Because
Yeah.
when you do that, the potency and power of what's been done to you, it just starts to diminish. It really does, because you're focused on moving ahead. You're focused on bringing the light. You're focused on being that woman that somebody will feel the energy of
Mm.
and ask you for help. And that is the power you have already within you.
Exactly. I think a lot of that, what you just said, has to go with us reminding ourselves that it's probably not even about us, right? We don't need to hold a grudge. We don't need to be mad at
Mhm.
them. Like they must have been going through something that they turned their back or stopped responding to us or stopped inviting
Mhm.
us. Like it had nothing to do with us. And I find that a lot of women like to hold on to that and then create that negativity, that negative story, which stop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You said something really important there, and I want to highlight this because this is what Lauren has told us. Ask
Mhm.
yourself, is there something I don't know?
Yes.
Or make a statement to yourself, maybe there's something I don't know. I don't know how many times I've been out in the world and I've snapped at a cashier, or I've gotten impatient with my children, or cut somebody off in traffic because I was going through some really hard things in my marriage, or I just got my butt handed to me in court. Doesn't happen very often, but it does happen occasionally. Or, or somebody was unkind to me, or I was getting ready to get my period, whatever the case may be. There have been times if there've been times that you've gone out into the world and acted less than your best self, ask yourself, maybe there's something I don't know. It just softens your response. And the other thing I want to say, and this is where I think is the most powerful tool a woman can use, is shifting what you choose to focus on. Because if you're going to focus on what's wrong, which is always available, like Tony Robbins says,
Always there.
then you're going to live there. You're going to live in that personal reality, which then becomes your personality. And that's a choice. You can do that. You're an autonomous person. You can choose that. I have a better choice for you. You can choose to focus on what's right, because that is also always available. And when you choose to focus on what's right, then what happens is the path opens for that next right step, because you're not living here. So your personal reality is fueled by your thoughts,
Yes.
which then creates your emotions, which then puts energy out into the world that opens up pathways you would have missed if you'd stayed over here.
Exactly. Christine, you are living proof of what you just said.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. But share with the audience how you're putting this in practice now. Like, what are you doing? How are you helping other women? Because that's what you're doing. What are you
Well, I'm doing a lot of things. As I kind of said when we started, my primary focus is my law firm right now. I have 2 kids in college, so that's a little bit of a necessity. But I'm a different kind of family law attorney. I really weave identity work into everything I do. And I'm finding that it's showing up not just with my female clients, but also my male clients, because I see the whole person. So when you are starting to work on yourself and working on your own values and your own energy, it not only seeps into other areas, but it starts to inform how you show up in whatever area you're in. So I don't care if you're that woman turning the construction sign, God be with you, I will always high five you when I drive by, or if you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, it does not matter, because when you are working on yourself, it shows up there. And so that's my first focus. My other focus is my Girl Out of Order podcast. I started this a few years ago, and at Girl Out of Order, we believe that not fitting in is the perfect fit. I bring guests on that talk about everything from sex to identity to everything in between, rewriting your story. At Girl Out of Order, we believe that we need to cultivate bravery, because it takes courage to do identity work. It takes courage to rewrite your story. Okay. And then we believe in inspiring boldness and giving women the tools to step out into the world and live out that identity. Because it's one thing to get brave and sort of rewrite it, but if you close that journal and keep it on a shelf, then you don't go out and boldly live it. Well, you kind of miss an important part. And then the last piece of Girl Out of Order that I'm very proud of is that we seek to build bridges among all women. I really believe that women have far more in common than they do that separates us. And so when we focus on the things that are different, we tear each other apart. But when we focus on what we have in common, and you see this in TLC, we have a wide variety of huge diversity of thought and feelings and beliefs and faiths, and yet we come together because we have this commonality. And then lastly, I also am an identity coach. So I have coaching clients, and I do an identity mastermind. Right now I've been doing it once a year. I'm going to launch it again in January. So I'm super excited. I'm reworking it. I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm going to give you like an applause because, guys, she's my friend and she's a badass. Yeah. So, how can they find you, Christine?
Well, the best way to find me would be on my website, which is thechristinegale.com. And you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I don't know, I'm dabbling in TikTok, but I don't know about that. But I'm very easy to find. I probably should be a little less easy to find, but can't really make a difference if people can't find you.
Exactly. No, it's good that people can find you because you can definitely make an impact in a lot of women. And I'm so grateful that you said yes to coming on the show so my listeners can get a dose of what I get on a regular basis.
I love it. And I can't wait to be with you soon. It's only, what do we got, about a month? And we're together again in your home state, Texas. I can't wait.
So I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Christine. Love
Thank
you
you.
and wish you all the best in everything that you do. Thanks,
Thank
everybody, for
you.
listening. I will catch you again next week with Untamed and Unapologetic. Bye.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to Untamed and Unapologetic. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe. Stay connected, and we'll see you at the next one.